Now, my friends, the main idea, the main concept in Parashat Tzav that I really want to teach, especially because this is a theme and I've been harping on the past few months, is there are so many sacrifices that are discussed in Parashat Tzav, and I said we're going to start from the beginning. But before we go back to the beginning to start, the beginning of chapter 6, verse 1, I wanted to first start with chapter 7, verse 11, because I think this is the main idea of the Torah. The main idea of the Torah is contained in these verses on chapter 7, verses 11 through uh, basically through verse 11 through 20. What is it? Through 20 through 21. So those 10 verses are the main point of the whole Torah. Can you believe that? Buried here in Parashat Tzav. And I promise you, this is actually right at the center of the Torah. The next center of the Torah, the verses are our next portion in Shmini. So this is leading us up to the climax of the Torah. And that is, these 10 verses. You say, what? This is the center? I think the 10 Commandments. I would think Mount Sinai, standing out Sinai, the commandment to wipe out Amalek. No, these 10 verses are the central religious responsibility of a Jew. Yes, Guy.
Is it like a fact or an like what makes them special? We're going to talk about it. What we're going to talk about why it's the center.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it right now.
What makes it like?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it right now. What makes it central? Exactly. So this is the idea that's central to the Torah, and we're going to study this passage, which we all have to know, and we're going to study with the Rashi, and then we're going to talk about it. So it says, chapter 7, verse 11, V'zo Torat Zevach HaShlamim Asher Yakrivu Hashem. This is the law of a Shlamim offering that one has to bring to God. Now, what is a Shlamim offering? There are different types of offerings which are discussed in this portion already. We have the Ola, which is entirely burnt. We have the Chatos, which is a sin offering, where if you commit a sin accidentally, if you had done it intentionally, you would be liable for the death penalty from heaven, called karet. There's the asham. There's the asham, which is a guilt offering. There are 5 different types of asham offerings. We're not going to get into that now. There are the minchos. These are the grain offerings, and we're not going to get into those right now. They are discussed in this portion. And then there's the shlamim. Shlamim is different because the ola is not eaten by anybody. The chatos and the asham, the ola is entirely burnt on the altar. The chatos and the asham, those sin offerings, they are partially burnt and partially eaten by the kohen in the temple. It's only the shlamim that could be eaten by non-kohanim, by men and women who are not kohanim. And an example of the shlamim is the korban coming up, which is the korban Pesach, which we're going to have on Pesach. We're supposed to eat that on the eve of Pesach. That's a type of shlamim. That's a type of offering which is eaten by the non-kohanim anywhere in Jerusalem, men and women, and it's also eaten by kohanim. Some of the meat goes to the kohanim, and some of it is burnt on the altar. That's why Rashi tells us that it brings shalom, it brings peace, because everybody gets a share of it: God, the kohanim, and the regular Jew. But now, in this portion, we talk about a very, very specific type of offering. What is this specific type of offering? This is called the thanksgiving offering. It says, Im al toda yakrivenu. If a person is bringing a shlamim offering as a thanks, if the shlamim offering, he's bringing a type of shlamim offering known as a korban toda, known as a thanksgiving offering. If that's the type of offering he has to do, he kriv al zevach hatoda chalot matzot pulot pashemen. He has to bring with this thanksgiving offering types of wafers or loaves of bread that are mixed with oil, or matzot mishuchim bashemen, or thin wafers that are smeared with oil. V'soas morbeches chalos bulos bashemen, and he has to bring them with loaves of bread that are boiled, mixed with oil. So basically, let me just explain what the verse is, and then we'll do the Rashi. That this Thanksgiving offering that he brings in the temple, he has to, if he wants to bring a Thanksgiving offering, and we're not told why he does. Rashi will have to tell us why a person has to bring a Thanksgiving offering. He brings it with, according to this, 3 types of loaves of bread, and all these types of loaves are unleavened bread. They have not risen. There's no yeast in them. Of course, the yeast in those days came from the sourdough, or came from the air at large, but they didn't have yeast packets, but it came either from a sourdough or from the air at large. So we're going to see that there was another type of bread that they brought with it, 4 different types of loaves. But first, they talk about the 3 loaves that are like what we would call today matzah, unleavened bread. So all the offerings in the temple, with the exception of 2, consisted of unleavened bread. And the 2 exceptions are this Thanksgiving offering and also the 2 loaves that are brought on the holiday of Shavuot as part of a special sacrifice for Shavuot. All the other loaves of bread are what we would call today matzah. So why would you bring this Thanksgiving offering? Rashi tells us, Im al devar hoda'ah, if over a matter of thanksgiving, al nes shena'aselo, why would you bring this? So Rashi says, for a miracle that happened for him. Could go on, for example, actually, Rabbi Yosef Goldman, in his excellent shiur, which he gives every morning at 10 a.m., actually referred to this concept today also. Says for the miracle that happened to him, what is a type of miracle that could happen that you'd have to bring a Thanksgiving offering? And Rashi quotes from the Talmud. Al Yordei Hayam, people, there are 4 categories. Either people who go by the sea, Holchei Midbarios, those who travel through a wilderness, Chavushe Beisa Asurim, people who are held in captivity, V'chole Shenisrapa'ah, and a sick person, Shenisrapeh, who was healed. So again, the 4 categories are people who travel over the sea, people who travel through the wilderness, people who are sick and were healed, and also people who were released from captivity. They had an obligation to go to the temple and bring a Thanksgiving offering. Let me just finish this paragraph and then we'll take a question. Because it says about these people, Yodu Hashem chasto v'neflosav v'nei adam. They should give praise to Hashem for his kindness, give thanks, and his wonders to mankind. V'yizbechu zivchei todah. And they have to bring Thanksgiving offerings. If for one of these causes he pledged to bring a peace offering, shalmei todahin. These are considered this type of offering, which is called a Thanksgiving offering. And they require these, we'll see, 40 loaves of bread. Ha'amor be'inyan. Ve'ein nechalon el yom u'v'layla. Kamosha meforeshkan. So Rashi tells us that if you have one of these things happen to you, and so as a consequence, you made a vow, I'm going to bring a Thanksgiving offering, then you have to go to the temple and bring this animal, and then you bring along with this animal, we're learning that there's 2 features with it that are unique, that you have only 1 day and 1 night to eat it. Normally for a Korban Shlomim, you have 2 days, so this has to eat in less time, and also normally you don't have to bring the bread with it. And here you have to bring 40 loaves of bread with this Thanksgiving offering, which also have to be eaten by 1 day and 1 night. This is the first thing that Rashi is teaching us. Now, let me just take the question here. Hold on. So the question, the Netziv already points out, Netziv, writing in the 19th century, Volozhin, he comments, why is it that you have less time to eat this? He said, because what we need to do is recognize that this is a time where you need to give thanksgiving. It's not just what's the proper way to give thanks? The proper way to give thanks to Hashem is by giving to others. The best way to give thanks to Hashem is by expressing gratitude, by doing good for others. And so therefore, this person, he has a lot of bread and less time to eat his meat. So he can't store it. The only way you can get rid of it is you have to do a kiddush for the community and invite everybody to partake in it. And so basically, if you're feeling like you're so blessed by God for whatever reason, the proper thing to do is to express your gratitude. And the best way to express your gratitude to God is by being generous with others. And we don't have this sacrificial offering today. But what we do have are 3 ways in which we can include it in our liturgy. We could recite the Psalm of Thanksgiving, which we recite every single morning, except for, ironically, on the eve of Pesach and the eve of Yom Kippur, because we won't have time to eat the bread in time before Pesach starts, before Yom Kippur, and we don't recite it on Pesach. And so that's one way we could do. That's one thing we could do. A second thing we could do is we could, so first of all, we recite the Psalm of Thanksgiving every day. We recite it with special intensity. The second thing we do is if we really feel like our life was in danger, or we recite what's called the Birkat HaGomel, the blessing of gratitude to Hashem. And that needs to be recited with a minyan. And the third thing we do is we recite the blessing of Modim every day in the Amidah 3 times a day, the blessing of gratitude. And before we recite this blessing, it's my personal practice, and I'm just sharing this with you in hopes that just because it's been very helpful to me spiritually, that I go through a list of all the things that I have to be grateful for. And when I say that list, whatever problems were bothering me, I realize are overwhelmed by the amount of gratitude that I feel, towards Hashem, and the challenges are insignificant compared to all the overwhelming good that God has given. So I think that this is the most important spiritual quality, because this is the source of all spiritual strength and all spiritual qualities. It's the source of humility. It's the source of generosity. It's the source of kindness, is by recognizing that nothing we have is ours. Everything is a gift from Hashem. And therefore, if we have that approach to life, then we will have an ability to walk in the path of Hashem. But if we don't have this concept of gratitude, of recognizing that everything we have is a gift from Hashem, we're going down a path of that's very dangerous. So that's why and we haven't even gone through past one verse explaining this ritual, but that's why I said I believe that this is the most important spiritual quality a Jew should work on every day. Take 5 to 10 minutes, spend your time on gratitude, and I promise you, this is the path to spiritual improvement. All the studies show, a lot of studies, that this has been replicated, that people who have emphasized gratitude in their life will come to a place of happiness. The keys to happiness is to expressing your gratitude. Because if you're not going to express your gratitude, if you're not grateful, I promise you, you will be eventually unhappy. Okay, so let us continue. We're just still in the first verse that we're discussing, looking at the Rashi. Rashi says, and you shall bring as an offering, Vikriv al zevach hatodah. You have to bring these 4 types of bread, Rashi says. What are the 4 types? Chalos, these are loaves. Rikikin, wafers. And rivucha, which is our like boiled loaves. These are shlosha mine matzah. These are 3 types of what we call matzah, meaning unleavened bread. But in addition, you have to have, and also you have in the next verse, chalot lechem chametz, loaves of leavened bread. You're going to have bread that has yeast in it. Again, highly unusual. In the temple, you didn't have any. You only had one other offering like that. V'chol min v'min eser chalot, and each type of loaf there were 10 of them, so a total of 40. This shiuran, and then it gives their volumes and their measures, which is 5 Jerusalem saying, which is 6 saying of those in the wilderness, which is 20 Isaron. And okay, so now let's talk for a minute about this. What's the spiritual symbolism of the matzah being brought, and also the chametz? Well, usually we only have matzah, but now for the Thanksgiving offering and the offering of Shavuot, the 2 loaves, it's able to be chametz, it's leavened bread. What's the spiritual significance about that? What's the spiritual significance? Do you want to take a shot at it? Anybody want to take a shot at that? Hold on. The question again is, why is it that normally in the temple, when we bring an offering, the bread has to look like matzah. It has to be unleavened bread. But when we bring this offering on the Thanksgiving offering, we're allowed to bring the bread. We have to bring both matzah and also the bread that is unleavened, meaning like bread we typically see, bread that is leavened, chametz, like the normal bread, like challah that we eat the whole year. So the rabbi, what does matzah symbolize? What does chametz symbolize? The rabbis tell us that chametz, the bread that rises, it represents symbolically arrogance. That's us rising, the arrogant amongst us. And that's what the chametz represents. So now, what is the source of all arrogance? Why would a person be arrogant? Well, it says, "Oh, I didn't get my upgrade on my flight." What? You're not entitled to anything. Everything is a gift from Hashem. You're not entitled to anything. Oh, I can't. But woe is me. I got a flat tire on my car. That's arrogance. We should start by saying, thank you, Hashem, for giving me a car. Thank you, Hashem, for gratitude to God for being able to breathe. God gives me in the morning food to eat. God gives me clothes to wear. God gives me the ability to breathe. And then one thing goes wrong. I have a slight inconvenience. My life is horrible. It's coming from a place of arrogance. So all of our sin comes from a place of arrogance. And the antidote to arrogance is gratitude. Meaning to say, we have no expectations of anything from God. Whatever we're given from God is an absolute gift. Whatever we're given from God is an absolute gift. That is the fundamental teaching of our faith. So every day when we go to the temple, we bring the matzah. We bring the matzah. But when it comes to the whole offering, which is a Thanksgiving offering, we've so totally absorbed this message because the whole offering is the offering of Thanksgiving. Then we're allowed to have a little bit of bread which has the leaven in it, because we've inoculated ourselves from that very dangerous spiritual sin of arrogance. And so therefore, since we've inoculated ourselves from that very dangerous spiritual sin of arrogance, for this reason, we're able to bring the leavened bread just this one time, only when we have so immersed ourselves in this concept of gratitude. That's one idea behind it. Another, that's what Joyce was saying. That what does the chametz represent? The sor shebeisa is the leaven in the dough is sin, is arrogance. And so therefore, we only when we bring a sacrifice of gratitude can we eat such loaves of bread. The other concept that I heard about this is that the matzah, and it's a very similar idea, but it comes in it from a different direction. The matzah represents the concept that we have not achieved complete redemption. We bring matzah is the dough interrupted. It was not able to rise. It was unable to rise. It's a recognition that we have not achieved complete redemption. So when we bring an offering, let's say on Pesach, we eat matzah, we're declaring We haven't achieved redemption yet. When will redemption come? Only when will redemption come? Only were we fully redeemed when we were released from Egypt? No. When did full redemption come? Only when we received the Torah at Sinai. And so therefore we don't eat Pesach, the leavened bread. We eat the unleavened bread because we're only going to achieve full redemption. It's a reminder to us we have not yet achieved full redemption until such time as we stand at Sinai and receive the Torah. That's when we achieve the full redemption. That's when we allow ourselves the leavened bread. Same idea here also when it comes to the Thanksgiving offering, that we're saying we've reached a stage where we're so appreciative of God. We're recognition with this Thanksgiving offering. We were so appreciative of what God has given us that we can allow ourselves to recognize a moment of complete redemption. A moment of complete redemption. But this moment is limited. Like this, we only have that day and that night. We can't recognize that this is the end. Every day is another challenge to bring this into our lives. And so that's the concept that this offering is the only one that has the loaves of bread in it. Okay, everybody follow that? Okay, so going back to these verses that are describing these offerings, the verse states in verse 13, as we had referred to it, but now we're going to say it in person. It says, Al chalot lechem chametz yakriv karbano. This is the only offering which is going to be brought with the loaves of chametz. Normally it states that all chametz cannot be brought on the altar, all leavened bread, but this one is brought with chalot lechem chametz al zevach todah shlamav. This with the sacrifice of his Thanksgiving offering. Rashi tells us, Magid she'ena lechem kadosh kedushat haguf. The bread is not holy with inherent holiness. Meaning to say, this is a technical law, but the truth is, let's stop our discussion of the Thanksgiving offering here because I also want to get to the beginning of the portion. So anyway, this is the Thanksgiving offering. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address them before we go on to the next